Hello. Welcome to Office Hours with Amber. I'm Amber, and this is Office Hours. A lot of big updates, guys. My audio seems to be working. Praise be. Also, my video doesn't seem to be as laggy. We're going to say a few prayers to the big man. We're medicated, we're dedicated, we're excited. First 10 minutes of this, I'm going to explain kind of who I am, why we're here. For the first month, I'll be doing this. And then for following months, I'm going to be kind of just jumping right into content, but we're just kind of feeling it out. Okay, medicated, dedicated, stoked. Okay, Office Hours with Amber. Essentially, this is my very selfish case study to see that if I, in 12 months, can completely transform and update my understanding of Microsoft Excel and technology. As a consultant and a fractional engineer, I should know this stuff, especially because I attended the Microsoft Excel World Championships in 2023. I was dazzled with so much information all about dynamic arrays and lambdas and lets and Python and all this stuff. And I thought, for sure, I'm going to learn this in the next year. Guess what? Didn't do any of that. I learned like a little bit through osmosis, but like not nearly enough. So when I attended this year and noticed that technology's only speeding up from here, I need to take an active approach to my learning. So that is where this beautiful brainchild, Office Hours with Amber, came from. Essentially, breaking down my year into 12 smaller goals. So each month, I've got a different amount of goals. So this month I'm doing dynamic arrays. There's a month on lambdas and lets and Power Query, etc. Each month is then broken down into 4 individual weeks. Week 1, last week, I did some self-guided research to look into YouTube and ChatGPT and Google and see what I could find about dynamic arrays generally. In that week, I use a mixture of free and premium resources. You'll hear me reference Full Stack Modeler a lot because they've got such good content. So you'll see me reference it a little bit here today as well. Week 2 is where I'm really putting my nose to the grindstone. I don't know if that's the real word for it. Don't care. Where I take the concept that I learned last week and I apply it to something that's really bothering me or I should update in my current life, whether it's personal or professional. This week, this week, I'm going to be applying dynamic arrays to a price quoting tool that I use at work. We will get there soon. Week 3, I basically will be taking this tool or whatever I build to a professional or a Microsoft MVP, God willing, they talk to me, to get some iterative feedback from them and learn a little bit more. A little bit of personal, a little bit of professional, and then a little bit of outside accountability. Week 4 is my favorite, and that is when you, the community, get to join me on a Zoom call, pending you join the Office Hours with Amber group and the Discord. We come together and talk about all the things that we've achieved throughout the month, the pros, the woes, the insights, all of that. Kind of like a cute show and tell of sorts. So, essentially, today I will be diving into the pricing breakouts tool. I've got real concepts of plans of how I want to establish, like how I want to use it. But I'm going to preliminarily recap what I learned last week and how far I took it. So, let me get my screen shared. Okay, brilliant. If there's any problems with audio or video along the way, feel free to ping me in the chat because otherwise I won't know and that'll be really embarrassing. None of my business for now. Okay, so essentially today's goals is to first, before we even get into that, I want to recap what I learned last week. So essentially, I went into Full Stack Modeler and they've got this beautiful platform. And I'm going to show you the journey that I just went on. Let's log in. Essentially, went into Full Stack Modeler. And then I am working through the Excel Mastery course. Zoom out a little bit. So I've been working my way through this section and I got to dynamic arrays. The cool part is when I got into dynamic arrays, that comes with this little workbook, which has a full list of all sorts of different dynamic arrays that were super fun. Loved it so much. From there, I'm going to put this back there. Essentially, it gave me this bank of resources, and I will likely be referencing it over here on the left. because there's all sorts of tabs with all like really good ways of how to utilize it, as well as the different criteria and creative ways that you can use each of these. I will reference that a little bit, but I'm trying to just muscle forward by myself, but we'll see. So essentially, the process of which I'm going to follow today is I'm gonna toss, before I even get started on this specific tool, I think there's a lot of ways that I could use a lot of these in data cleanup, in KPI reporting. My background's in engineering and manufacturing, so a little different than the financial modeling world. But a lot of these, especially being able to use these to clean up data without taking a lot of computer resources, wicked. I feel like I need music or something. That's besides me, none of my business. But I think I could see this being a lot necessary for data cleanup, and especially for lookups and being able to like bring in a lot of columns and rows. I've got mild ideas, but for today, I'm going to be working on the pricing breakouts, which we'll get to. I'm going to throw this in ChatGPT first to see what its vibes are, if it's got more creative ideas. And then I'm going to go with my plan. So, dearest ChatGPT, I want to utilize dynamic arrays to, no, I don't like that. What are creative ways to utilize dynamic arrays in a coding tool? Let's see what it has to say. I'm sure it's not going to give me great answers on this, but you never know. You never know until you try. Come on, Banjo. Also, we have the real star of the party before we even get started. Banjo, do you have anything to... Oh, okay. He has a burp for the audience. Anything to show the audience? Anything to say before we get started? Nope, didn't think so. Okay. How about you hang out down there? Okay. Back on track. And we're gonna put Lo-Fi Girl in the background because silence might kill me off. Oh my gosh, hi Liana, thank you so much for coming. You're getting a sneak peek on what you're seeing next week. Also, if you don't know the lore behind the Lo-Fi Hip Hop Study Girl,
step into Wix Studio.
It's a nice,
the platform for agencies and
it's a nice little tour down memory lane. Okay. If the audio gets annoying, let me know. Otherwise, we shall continue. Okay. So ChatGPT's suggestion on how to utilize dynamic arrays in a quoting tool. Using filter to dynamically populate a list. Love. So I've got ideas myself, but it'll be interesting to see how it overlaps with what I'm thinking. Utilizing sequence to generate price tiers based on quantity. Okay. Custom discount scenarios. I have not messed around with let or map yet, so we're gonna mark that as a maybe. Live exchange rates, don't need that. Real time sort by cheaper. think there is a scenario where sort by would be helpful for either like lead times or by price. I'm still figuring out how I think XLOOKUP is a dynamic array. I mean, I get it when you're referencing, I think Full Stack had a good good idea of that. Text join. Text join. Scenario comparisons. Okay. I'm gonna add that to the list. Error handling makes sense. There's a potential for choose columns. Okay, I think I've got enough from ChatGPT. Its ideas are pretty close to where I'm thinking. So from here, I'm gonna... I can't quite tell if that's... taking up some resources. Okay. So. Uh-oh. So, okay. Before we dive into what we want to do, I think it's important to understand what the purpose of the tool is generally. So this is completed with a bunch of dummy data. I've replaced all the tabs with dummy information. This is the one we're working on today. Also, I'm on a mega wide screen and I increased all of my settings to like 150%. So everything, it feels like I'm on a, like, you know, like the childhood computers where like the mouse is, like the cursor is like this big. That is what I feel like right now. But I saw the stream last week, like last Monday, and I was like, I can't read anything. So we're going to try. So essentially, let's go back in time. We're going to have a little powwow. Okay, so essentially at Good Trade Depot, name drop, I'm the director of engineering, and I do a lot of price analysis or quote analysis since we do so many different types of projects. So we're a beverage co-manufacturer, so essentially, let's say you have a coffee brand or a water brand that you want to scale up from 5 gallons to 500 gallons. You'd come to us. We'd have like a little intro meeting. I'd provide a quote based on the project variables, all the variables you will see here shortly. But there's a lot of different things. So like what can type, lid type, label, tray, production style, carbonation, pasteurization, how many days it's going to take. So essentially, I want to be able to quickly provide people quotes based on the most up-to-date information. The current tool is pretty quick, not to toot my own horn. However, sometimes it's a little confused. I know exactly how it works, but it's a little confusing to others, and I want to be able to pass off doing quotes to someone else. So this is an effort to automate my way out of this job. Additionally, we get a lot of new information. Matt, thank you so much for coming. We get a lot of new information coming in each month from our vendors on different prices and discounts and minimum order quantities, etc. So I need some way to be able to categorize or to... Oh, you got me on the big screen. Yikes. I want to be able to memorialize prices over time to be able to recognize kind of sub-trends and patterns with our suppliers, as well as keep up to date and make sure that I can just paste in new data and then reference the latest estimate I have. I think getting in this practice early and getting in this practice generally will be helpful. And I think if I learn how to do it really effectively here, I can apply that to a lot of other tools. For instance, the memorialization of data is always a thing, and being able to recognize patterns over time is always going to be a thing. So that's a little background on why this tool exists and what it's used for. Okay, so essentially, I'm going to show you what was and what's about to be. So essentially, what happens, let me collapse. This is the homogenization of a bunch of random quotes that I've ran in the past. Not important. Preliminarily, when we're about to have a new client meeting, they will fill out a intro form on our website. This is all dummy data, clicked a bunch of numbers before we came in. But essentially, they can fill in all this information, and that will automate to the guts. Very cutely named. So this tab is called Guts, and it's ugly, and that's okay. So am I. Hide. And grid lines make me want to gouge my eyeballs out, so get rid of those. Brilliant. La la la. And also my mouse lag is outrageous. Okay, so essentially we've got this quote. I can toggle through the different quotes here. 13, 12, 11. All their information comes in depending on how well they filled it out. So let's go with this one specifically. We've got canned cold brew. They want to do 4,000 cans in a 12-ounce standard. In this circumstance, I would go over here and start filling out yes or no depending on the things that they asked for. So we need some ends, we need some labels, we need some trays. This really requires the user to have a working understanding of where the data lives and what you're looking for. La la la. 4,000. There's a lot of opportunity to kind of, for lack of a better word, fuck it up. And I know exactly on this page where I can be clicking and where I can't. So imagine someone comes in and makes this 8,000. That's now disconnected from everything else. Not great. So la la la. Poke, poke, poke. There's some numbers in here, whatever. So in the end, you end up getting this cute little quote breakout. Unhide. Then you've got all of this quote information. You copy and paste. And you throw in the end of the quotes. Brilliant. So that's essentially how the tool works, current status. But it's kind of jerky and annoying, and if I was to need to update, like let's say realistically every month, these numbers all could change. All 90 of those, 52 of those, and yearly, more often than not, these numbers change. So that's like over 120 things that I don't want to type in by myself each month. So essentially, voila, this is where new guts comes from. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, Amber, that looks worse. That's because it does. And we're not there yet. So essentially, what I want to do is now there are places where you can kind of see anything in yellow is something that is editable, whereas green would be the output of these. We're working through ideas here. I want to be able, with the choices essentially, in the materials section specifically, I want this to be dynamic arrays based on filterable, based on, what did they call it? Dynamic data validation. And I've done this with a few tools before, like with mild success in different ways. But the only way to do that really properly is to have really good master data architecture built in the background. So I had my sweetie girl Bridget do so much work today and create like a pricing sheet essentially of invoices that we've had in the past. But there's still some data gaps. So for me to be able to complete what I'm trying to do today, I'm just going to fill in the gaps with some dummy data. And then eventually over time, we're going to build out master data hygiene at Good Trade Depot. But for now, we're just going to fill some stuff in. Now, this is where we get to the, I would say, not like, this is just kind of the watch section. So I'm going to turn up the audio. Feel free to follow along. If you've got a goal that you're going for this month, this is some designated focus time. But yes, if there's any questions, feel free to pop in the chat. Otherwise, we're just going to hang out, listen to music, and have a good time. Probably should turn the audio up first. Lo-fi girl. Okay. Harry, I'm so glad you came. Thanks for joining. We're currently just vibing. It's just going to be a lot of me ticky-tackying, so feel free to just put this on in the background on your TV and totally snooze. I wonder if Spotify takes up more resources than YouTube. Let's find out. Because we do have the Office Hours of the Amber playlist. No, I need to. Not time to be DJ Am Jam. I gotta relax with that. But I want to.
With Mochi Health,
Oh,
I've lost.
gosh. Okay. Back to Lo-Fi Girl. Okay, however, before I go too far with this, I do want to take a little bit of time to understand the data requirements of dependent data validation using dynamic arrays so that I know the level of data quality I need. So, un momento.
Which meant a lot of setup. However, with dynamic array functions, creating dynamic dependent data validation lists is much quicker. In this video, I'll show you both the old way for those who don't have Microsoft 365 and the new easier way for those who have dynamic arrays. A dependent data validation list is one where the first selection dictates the items displayed in the second list. So for example, I can choose Australia here and the list of regions I get are Australian states. Let's take a look at how we set this up. Now, before dynamic array functions, we use named ranges and table names. For example, here you can see my table containing the countries is called country. And if we have a look in the name manager under formulas, you can see that I've named this table country list. If we select the refers to, you can see the marching ants around the country table. Now, strictly speaking, because the country table is on the same sheet as my data validation list is going to be, I don't technically need to also give this table a named range. But if your tables are on different sheets to your data validation lists, as they often are, then you need to give the table a defined name so that your list automatically includes any new countries you add to the table. So let's set up this first data validation list. Selecting the cells on the data tab, I want to go data validation. Here I want list, and the source is going to be the named range I set up. I'll press F3 to bring up the list of names, and I can just double click to select it from the list. There's only one there, so it's obvious which one it is. Let's click OK there, and now I've got my list of countries. Next, I set up a table for each country's regions. So you can see here the table names are USA, Australia and UK. Now it's essential that the names of these tables match the names of the countries, and you'll see why next. So to set up dependent data validation, I'm going to select the cells first, and then on the data tab, go back to data validation. Here I want list, and in the source I'm going to use the indirect function to return the country selected in column B. Now I don't want the second $sign for absolute referencing because I want this to be relative to the row that the data validation list is on. So I'll click OK. Let's select a country or region, and then we get our list of regions that are specific to the country or region selected in column B. Likewise, if I choose Australia, now I get Australian states, and if I choose USA, I get American states. Now this technique works in all versions of Excel, but the next technique, which I think is easier to set up, requires a Microsoft 365 license. Let's take a look. In this example, I'm using the same data, but this time I can store it in a single table, which is a more common layout. This table is called TBL regions, and I don't need to set up an additional name for it. So the first thing I want to do is return a list of the country names, and I can use the unique function to do that. So referencing the country column, I'll return a list of names. Now I want it sorted, so let's wrap it in sort. And instead of it spilling down the rows, I want it to spill across the columns. So I'm going to use transpose. And there's my list of country names. And if I add any more countries to this table, this formula here will automatically add them to the end. So with that set up, I can insert my data validation list. So on the data tab, data validation, then here I want list. And the source is simply the first cell in my formula. And on the end, I want to add the hash sign. This is going to tell the data validation list to pick up all of the countries in that spilled array. So if a new one gets added and it ends up in cell K4, it's automatically going to be picked up in this range. Click OK, and now I can choose a region from the list. Now I can set up the lists for the regions, and for this I can use the filter function to get a list of regions for the countries listed in row 4. So filter the regions where the country equals the country selected here. Close parentheses on filter. Now I'd like that list sorted, so let's wrap it in sort and press enter. So there's my list of Australian states. Let's copy the formula across, and now we have the lists for each region or country. Now you might be wondering why I didn't reference the spilled range in the filter function, and that's because the filter function can't spill both down the rows and across the columns in this scenario. So now I'm ready to set up the data validation for the regions. Let's select the cells, insert data validation, we want a list, and I can use the XLOOKUP function to return the list for the country selected.
Oh, Hey Jack. Basically, I'm trying to utilize dynamic dependent data validation, dynamic arrays for dependent data validation so that I can build out my price quoting tool. In the price quoting tool, basically, I want on the new guts, I want to be able to choose based on the application information, it to spill out all of the information of the thing I choose. We'll see how far I get, but I'm trying to watch her video to see what the data behind it needs to look like. So right now I'm actually building out my like raw inventory or like raw item table so that I can make sure that the data's built well enough so that it all works together, I think.
In column B, so X lookup. What are we looking up? This country here. I want to remove the absolute reference from the row. I only want it on the column. Where am I looking at up? In this row here. What am I returning? This row here. Now, I'm not selecting all of the rows, just the first one. And then I'm going to close parentheses on lookup or X lookup, and then we're going to add the hash sign. What that's going to do is return the whole list, and because they're all different lengths, it's going to automatically adjust accordingly. Click OK, and there I have my list for the UK. Let's select Australia. There's Australia and USA. So you can see how it works. Now you might be wondering why I just didn't take the filter function here and put it straight into my data validation source here. And that's because filter returns an array and data validation lists only accept a range, which is what XLOOKUP is returning. Now with both of these techniques, I can add new regions to the list. So for example, let's add USA and let's add in IL. So you can see it's now in this list here. And if I look at my data validation list, you can see it's there too. I hope you found these techniques useful. You can download the file for this lesson from the link here. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. And why not share it with your friends who might also find it useful. Thanks for watching.
Okay, big vibes. Big vibes. Back to music. I'm going to, I think, I'm going to keep playing around with the back end. And then once I have the data cleaned up well enough, then I'm going to do those sort filters that she had just mentioned. And then start peppering stuff in. I think by, oh my gosh, the hour passes so fast. I think the real point, we're going to have heart to heart. The case study of seeing if 1 hour per week can completely transform your understanding of Excel definitely needs more than 1 hour. I think it's more, the 1 hour is so good at stoking the motivation and the creativity to like get the ball moving. But as soon as we get 30 minutes in, I'm like, oh my God, I love chit chatting with people. It's horrible. I digress. We're back on subject. Okay. Music back on. Vibes. I'm a chatty Cathy by nature. It really is tough. Oh, I should be making this a named range. How silly of me. How silly of me. I think that is, all right, another heart to heart with y'all. I have had a come to Jesus about tables, like named tables, and using them in formulas. I don't know what awoken in me, but like being able to just type the table name, press tab, and then get your columns. So wicked. And like the use, being able to go back into my own formulas and be like, sum ifs, sales, where, zip code equals zip code. Crazy. I'm a changed woman. All right, table. Like, how easy is that? Where? Ah. Okay, now the real thing is, can I have it dynamically address the column header? Let's ask ChatGPT. I want... Let's give it an example. Oh, I guess you can't see what I'm doing. There we go. With this function, I want to replace the column. Oh, brilliant. I knew that well, I don't think I really need that level of bulletproofery, if you will. I almost hate that. Okay. It was a nice exercise. We don't need it, though. Maybe we do. I think I do like that. I did like that. Oh, that's unfortunate. I like don't love it, but I do love it. Okay. And now I've forgotten everything she said. Okay.
List, we select the refer, and if I choose USA, it's the columns. So I'm going to use transpose. And there's my list of country names. And if I add any more countries to this table, this formula here will automatically add them to the end. So with that set up, I can insert my data validation list. So on the data tab, data validation, and here I want list.
Okay.
The source is simply the first cell in my formula. And on the end, I want to add the hash sign. This is going to tell the data validation list to pick up all of the countries in that spilled array. So if a new one gets added and it...
Okay, new guts. So... Okay. How did I even call it is the real question. Label. Okay, those are can types, so that's actually good. So we don't really technically need. Okay. This needs to be data validation based on the hash sign. Don't be dumb, don't be dumb, don't be dumb. Let's do it. Size. Hash. Work. Brilliant. I am everything. I am a fucking rock star. Sorry. Yeah, it is funny how I like as soon as I hop on live, I'm like, I've never used Excel in my life actually. This is wicked though. But as we see, I've got some data quality issues. How silly of me. All right, but 12-ounce sleek. Brilliant. Oh my God, I'm so excited that worked. Okay.
Ends up in cell K4, it's automatically going to be picked up in this range.
Brilliant.
Click OK, and now I can choose a region from the list. Now I can set up the lists for the regions, and for this I can use the filter function to get a list of regions for the countries listed in row 4. So filter the regions where the country equals the country selected here.
Harry, thank you so much. Your
Close
support means
parentheses
everything.
on filter. Now I'd like that list sorted, so let's wrap it in sort and press enter. So there's my list of Australian states. Let's copy the formula across, and now we have the lists for each region or country. Now you might be wondering why I didn't reference the spilled range in the filter function, and that's because the filter function can't.
I'm imagining the way I've got this set up is that nothing is filtered based on how it interacts with. I think I'd have to do a filter, this filter based on what matches the size. Perhaps. Let's give that a whack. I know this is gonna torch it, but that's okay. Filter raw item where can of type where raw item size equals that thing, if empty, thing. Okay, that's a good sign. Okay, fair. Okay, okay, cool. Okay. And then making that into a filter.
Down the rows and across the columns in this scenario.
I'm gonna go fix that 12-ounce sleek issue though. Oops. Oh, Banjo, you good? Oh, brother. Oh, just sleepiest babies. I think it would have been easier to just change the other one too. But that's okay. Need to make individual rows for those as well. Okay. I should have Control F'd and replaced, but it's too late. We're past it. Can't be bothered. Okay.
So now I'm ready to set up the data validation for the regions. Let's select the cells, insert data validation. We want a list. And I can use the XLOOKUP function to return the list for the country selected in column B. So XLOOKUP, what are we looking up? This country here. I want to remove the absolute reference from the row. I only want it on the column. Where am I looking at up? In this row here. What am I returning? This row here. Now, I'm not selecting all of the rows, just the first one. And then I'm going to close parentheses on lookup or XLOOKUP, and then we're going to add the
I didn't think it was going to work.
What that's going to do.
Before y'all judge me, I didn't think it was going to work. First and foremost, Banjo loves being on camera. So, designated Banjo time. I picked him up in the hills of Appalachia back in 2022. His birthday is in 2 days. He's turning 3. Oh, we're not tonguing on camera. Sorry, brother. He smells really bad, but I love him so much. His name is Banjo, and if you're ever on a Zoom call with me while I'm at home, he's probably on my lap. Got anything to say? Oh, no tonguing, please. Are you feeling a little judged? Okay. Anyways, yes. Here's the boy. Baby Banjo Johnson. Oh, the sweetest. You got eye boogers like a monster. I've got the heated blanket on me, and that is why he is not moving. Okay, back on subject. Whoa, brother. I knew that this filter wasn't gonna work. Banjo, they're telling you happy birthday. Are you gonna say thank you? Rude. I knew the filter was not gonna work that way, but I don't want to make filters for everything. Oh yeah, he's 3 pounds of pure steel. And if there's ever like people outside of the apartment, the growling he does is so psycho. I wish I could take him to dog parks. I was hoping like, oh, this is going to be a way for me to meet other people and we're going to go to dog parks. He got stepped on by one Great Dane and he hates dogs now. I think it's an owner problem, but yeah, tough for the little guy.
Is return the whole list, and because they're all different lengths, it's going to automatically adjust.
If I ever create a case, if ever, there will be Banjo referenced. You know that to be sure.
Just accordingly. Click OK. And there I have my list for the UK. Let's select Australia. There's Australia and USA. So you can see how it works.
I feel like there's got to be some sort of cuter way to do. Okay. We're going to have a heart-to-heart as well. The way I want to do data validation with all these filtered lists based on a lot of, like each filtered list is going to need kind of supplemental information. And is it a cardinal sin to just put it over to the right or like on a calculation tab? Ugh, it's getting kind of ugly. I think that there's got to be like, I need to look at like a different YouTube video to see if there's a more clever way to do that. Wait a minute. Let's make ChatGPT help me again. I would like to, and I know you don't have to use the pleasantries with ChatGPT, but on the off chance that the, robots take over eventually, I want them to know I treated them as human. I think that's important. I would like to create data validation in Excel based on, hidden. Hey, the people have spoken and I appreciate everyone's honesty. I try my best to not hide stuff, but sometimes it's such a necessary evil. Banjo, do you need to go to the restroom? Okay. Duty calls for Mr. Banjo. I'm going to put music on for 2 whole minutes. I will be right back. And we're back. Banjo thankfully figured it out. It's 20 degrees in Michigan and Banjo is efficient. So, previously unknown hidden sheet. Like, find it. I agree completely. When I find a buried hidden sheet, especially, I don't know if you guys have interacted with like teachers pay teachers or any like people who've made Excel sheets and sold them. They always include a password protected hidden sheet, and I think that is some skeevy business, especially if I'm like paying to get in the middle of it. I'm like, I like the fact that you're protecting your intellectual, like, you know, your property, but also let me get in the gut, so let me fix stuff, because you didn't make the tool good enough to like dynamically fix and like adjust for things. Like there was a circumstance where they only allowed like 20 rows for like their students, and it's like, what childhood classroom doesn't have more than 20 kids in it? And you sold this Excel sheet to these poor teachers that are using it. I digress. I could talk about that later. But anyways, okay. So I have effectively proven to myself that dynamic arrays and data validation is not super duper easy, but I'm going to take, so throughout the next week, my hour is quickly fading. I at least have proven to myself that I am competent enough to know that dynamic arrays are very useful. I know how to use and what they're used for, and I have a clear-ish understanding of how I'm going to utilize them in this tool, and I'm excited to bring updates next week. Thankfully, our sweet Liana is humbly helping my humbleness. I think I'm having a stroke. What I'm saying is Liana is a badass, and we're going to do an interview next week, and I'm going to show her the dead cat that is this tool, and I'm going to have her roast me to a crisp. And I'm super excited about it, because then I learn something, you learn something, we all get to go do cool stuff. But my brain has completely left the station. Okay, last 5 minutes. So also, Jack, with Unbreakable Excel password, I would love to know some hacks on all that, because I feel like every time I try to do some like background magic to something like that, it never works for me. Okay, I digress. So, a few things. I am going to get the Discord link, and after this call ends, I'm going to be hopping into the chit chat chamber for a little while if anyone wants to head that way. Oh yes, Liana owns a business called Rate My Excel. It's wicked, and I'm gonna educate y'all so much more about that next week. The Discord that we are all congregating in is called Excelopolis. Jack, thank you so much for letting me take up a very small section of it. I am going to disable streamer mode. I'm going to grab that link. I'm going to put that in the chat. And then I'm going to head that way. If I don't have a stroke first. Okay. I think that pasted. Thank you guys so much for coming and watching me flounder for an hour. Love chit-chatting with y'all. Harry, go take a very nice sleep. Grant, Jack, Matt, Liana, thank you so much for coming. And I am gonna go head over to the Discord. Last time I ended and it didn't end, like, it seemed like I just jumped off. So if it does that again, so sorry.